Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another beautiful video on this beautiful channel on this beautiful day. How you guys and girls are doing? Hope you're doing great as always. Please check out the description box for all the nice links. Also drop a like, subscribe if you like the content. All right, today we're gonna be working on this GUI texture selector thing, but I thought we'd just actually add the grid positionings to this to our text, right? So we can see which position of the grid we're at. Actually, I'm not gonna do that like that. There we go. So mouse position grid, mouse position grid. I suggest you go check out the SFML tutorials on grids and stuff that I put out. It's a 4-part mini series, just explains all the grid stuff, how mouse position grid and view works. We don't have a view yet, so this doesn't really matter right now. It doesn't mean anything. It's the same as the window position, but once we have a view, we'll be able to have a certain camera position, mouse position within the camera limits. Kind of, it's a little weird, but if you watch the tutorial, you'll see how it works. Also, you'll see how that works here once we implement the view. Anyway, we got the grid here showing now, so we can see what's going on. Also, I want to put it a little bit more to the side, so I'm probably gonna put it maybe 100.f to the side, to the right. I don't know if 100 is enough, but it should be. It should be. And we could just set this to whatever. It doesn't really matter. We'll just set it to that. Let me just run this quickly, see that everything works before we start working on that GUI element. Let's go to editor. Okay, that looks pretty cool. So I can see the grid positions actually. Maybe it's a little too small for you to see, but they're right there on the right side. And that's exactly what I want. So that's great. Now to start off with the GUI, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna create a new class here, class, and I'm gonna call it texture selector. All right, very simple, just a little class, private, public, just as usual. There you go. Okay, and we're gonna have a few things in here. We're gonna have a selector thing. We're gonna have the texture sheet. We're gonna have all that stuff. So it's gonna be cool. Texture selector. Now you're like, why are we making all this dumb GUI stuff? Well, it is dumb, but it is necessary. It's a good way to learn stuff and good way to kind of bang stuff into your head, right? So the more you do this kind of stuff, the more you'll understand how you can divide up your program, your game in a nice way, and yeah, it will just be experience. So it's always good with experience, right? So that's what I'm trying to do with this series. I'm trying to do a little bit of everything. But yeah, so once we have that ready, let's think of the basics. So what I want is when I open up the texture selector, I want to have a big square. Okay, but that square is going to be the bounds. This is going to be like my window, right? And then within that's going to be the texture sheet. And if it becomes bigger than the bounds, then, well, we'll be able to kind of scroll within the bounds and go from there. But if it's smaller, it will be kind of like a little square within a square. But let's start off with the base. So SF rectangle shape. Let's just call it bounds. Okay, and that's going to be our bounds around, just like I said. And then we're going to have the SF sprite, which is going to be the let's just call it the sheet. Doesn't really matter. We'll just call it the sheet. And the way you create a texture selector is going to be by giving it a SF texture pointer texture sheet. Okay. You're going to need points, float X, float Y for positions, and then the bounds, the size of it. So float width, float height. All right, so it's going to kind of work like that. Now, I'm going to think about how to scroll within this big bounding box thingy, but we'll look at that in a minute. We'll look at that a little later. But let's just go ahead and do that. So the position and the bounds and the texture itself, that's cool. That's cool. Now that we have that, let's go in here all the way to the bottom. And we'll say probably copy this, whatever we have here. Just put it there. And we'll call it the texture selector here. Texture selector. So you can create, the good thing about this, you can create several one of these. So it's a really nice way to do it. Drop down. I'm just going to copy these two and put them right underneath here. And probably remove everything from within. Like that. Everything here as well. Just like that. We'll keep those. And then we'll have a SF texture pointer texture sheet. Okay. Seems nice. Seems good. And it is the texture selector. There we go. We got a constructor and a destructor. And it doesn't really need to do anything as long as this is here. So our thoughts here now, we're going to do the bounds first. This bounds dot set position, X and the Y. All right. And maybe I should do the set size first. This bounds dot set size 2f width height. Okay. Am I? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Okay, so we got that ready. We're gonna set up the bounds. This bounds dot set fill color. Let's give it not completely transparent, but let's give it like 50, 50, 50, and then maybe 100, something like that. Really dark, but at least it is it's quite transparent. So at least you can see that it's there. And then this bounds dot set outline thickness to maybe 2.f or 1.f to make it look nice and sleek. Set outline color to SF color. And we'll do kind of a little transparent white, so 200, something like that. So there you go. Now we got our bounds and we got the set position on it and we got all that stuff. Now we're gonna do this sprite. No, this sheet dot set texture. All right, and we're gonna set it to this pointer. So texture sheet. And should I make it a reference is the question. It'll make it a little easier. Let's just, actually, you know what? Usually we have those in pointers, so we'll just keep it a pointer. It doesn't really matter. You do the way you want it to do, the way you want to do it. So it doesn't matter. You can use whatever you want. So once we set the texture, this sheet dot set position, X, Y, just same thing. Now we're gonna have to do all our checks. So now at least we got the texture, we got the position, we got all that stuff. We're gonna have to do some things. So if this sheet dot get global bounds dot width. Now we gotta see if the sheet inside the inner part is larger than the outer part, is greater than this bounds. Get global bounds dot width. So if it is greater, we're going to do some stuff. We're going to do the same thing for Y. So let's say height. 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 There we go. So if it is greater, we're going to do this. Sheet dot set texture rect. All right. From 0, 0. No. SF int rect. From 0, 0 to the width of this bounding box. Very simple. And we're gonna retain this, the Y. So this sheet dot get global bounds dot height. So we're going to retain that, and that should solve our problem. So now we can just copy paste this, but we're going to kind of move things around here. We're going to retain the width this time, and we're going to change the height. So let's change height here. Now let's do width here. And that should do the trick. So we should be able to set the texture inside and make sure we don't have it go outside of the bounds of this box. And that feels good. So at least we can create this now. We can render it now. We can't render it yet. We need to create the functions. Void update something, doesn't have to do anything right now. Render though, we will just copy this in here. So we want to be able to render this. Now let me go in here and define these. All right. And like that. And then we'll just copy this GUI texture selector thing up here and put that in front. So there you go. That looks nice. So at least we have that ready to go. Target dot draw this. Let's draw the bounds first, and then we'll do draw this sheet. There you go. So now at least we can create it and we can draw it. And let us test that out now in the editor state. So we have this stuff here, the buttons and tile map and everything. There was one thing I wanted to fix in here as well. Did I do it? Init GUI after tile map. That's good. That is good. Okay, so let us just create that. GUI texture selector. Text selector. Let's just call it text selector. Doesn't really matter. Texture or texture selector. There you go. Now we have that defined. Now we're gonna have to or let's do it make it a pointer actually. There you go. So we can do init GUI right here. So this texture selector equals new GUI texture selector, and we're gonna put it at maybe 20.f. Give it a width of 5 times, we'll just say 500 now. It doesn't really matter. 500.f seems like a good size. And then the sheet, this texture, this tile map get tile sheet. Oh yeah, that's how you want to do it, and that returns a pointer. So it's a good thing we had it as a pointer actually. That is pretty nice. Flow const SF texture. Okay, so that returns a const SF texture. So we're probably gonna have to change that to const like that, and switch that to const here as well. Okay, once we do that, there shouldn't really be any problems anymore, I don't think. No, okay, we're good. Then we're gonna delete it. Before we forget, delete this texture selector. Once we delete that, we're good. Now we can do stuff. This texture selector update doesn't really do anything right now, but we'll still have it here. And then we'll render GUI, and I'm just going to target dot this texture selector render target. Okay, so we render that in front of stuff. I probably don't want to render that in front of the selector rectangle, or do I? I might want to do it, but not in front of the cursor text. So something like that. Renders the GUI and then the pause menu. Okay, so let's run this and let's see, because later we're gonna have to be able to minimize it and do stuff like that, and we'll code that in as we go along. It'll be really nice. It's not that hard to do. Here you go. We have our texture selector here, and it looks great. So we have the outer bounds, and then we have the inner bounds. And you can see when I move my selector here that it's a little darker and it's a little transparent, so it gives it that look right there that we want. And that's really nice. Everything really works, and if we close the program, it should not crash. Did not crash. So there you go. Now we have a beginning of a texture selector. Very simple, and we'll make sure when the mouse is within it, we'll only update that. We won't update all the other stuff like the input and stuff like that. We'll only do that if we're outside of the bounds. So we'll do a little magic there, and we'll make it work. Don't worry. But thank you for watching. Thanks for sticking with me in this video. Hopefully you're learning stuff. Hopefully you're having fun. So take care. Keep working hard, and I'll see you guys and girls in the next one. All right? Bye-bye.